Now, what we're finding, of course, is that this isn't merely about social networking, but a new model of economic value creation, one that applies just as much to individuals as it does to large enterprises. And let me give you a couple of examples of large companies that have started to think very differently about how they get access to talent, how they innovate today. Procter & Gamble, one of the examples that we wrote about in the first book. Now, Procter & Gamble has 9,000 of the world's leading scientists in its R&D department. These are people who are at the top of their fields in biology, chemistry, engineering, other fields that are important to P&G's products. Now, Procter & Gamble, of course, makes all kinds of things like soaps and detergents and household items. But what they found is that around 2000, their innovation success rate had started to flatline. Their stock price had started to decline. There was stagnation in the company. They found that it didn't matter how much money they put into internal R&D. They weren't generating more successful products and services. So they did an analysis, and they found out that for every one of the 9,000 people they employ full-time, there were another 200 out in the world, in other companies, research universities, independent scientists, engineers, creative people, whose talents they could potentially tap into. 200 for every one of the 900,000 who were equally as good, doing exceptional research in different fields that could contribute to P&G's products. If you do the math, 9,000 times 200 is 1.8 million. 1.8 million people whose talent they could potentially tap into. The question is how? Because no company can employ 1.8 million people full-time. But what they found is that through the internet, they could reach out to that enormous network of creative and intellectual talent, and they could tap into it on a much more ad hoc basis. They could send, if there was a challenge or an innovation problem that P&G could not solve efficiently, effectively, internally with their 9,000 R&D people, they would put the brief out to the 1.8 million and say, does anyone have the right combination of skills and expertise to solve this problem? And many times they found that, in fact, yes, they could find powerful, exciting ideas outside of their company. And in fact, today, in 2000, as of last year, 2010, 50% of all of P&G's new ideas for products and services come from outside of the company. And this has radically changed their whole approach to innovation. It's changed the culture of R&D inside their organization, because it's no longer about, did we invent it here or not? Because many companies have been hostile to external ideas, figuring if it wasn't invented in our company, then it couldn't be quite as good. But P&G has a different approach. They say, actually, it's not about whether it's invented here. We're very happy to find ideas outside the company. Our job as a company is to be excellent at commercializing ideas, irregardless of whether they were invented here or somewhere else. Another company that has a similar philosophy is Apple. And Apple's commitment to strategic openness has been a huge part of its success with the iPhone and other related products. You know, most companies have a very closed mentality when it comes to innovation. They say, we have to keep our ideas secret. We have to patent everything. We have to, fiercely defend our intellectual property, or else, we won't be competitive. Well, Apple said, look, yes, there are aspects of our business that we want to protect. We're very protective of the very nice design of the iPhone and the user interface, but they created this app store, which many of you have probably either used or heard about, right? The app store where you can get 300,000 different applications to download to your iPhone. Well, Apple probably creates 5% of those applications. The vast majority are created by this large external ecosystem of software developers around the world. So Apple has, in fact, enhanced its value proposition largely by organizing and finding ways to harness this external talent. It's very important, again, because they're tapping into a talent pool that is many times larger than what they could ever afford to employ full time. And they're getting this richness, this diversity of thought, many different approaches that, again, one company alone could never provide. Now, here's the inspiring part, I think. This is the fourth implication I want to share with you about this, is that small companies can take advantage of this too. And for the first time in history, arguably, small enterprises can compete on a global playing field like never before, largely because, again, they can tap into talent around the world. They can collaborate with customers. They can collaborate with suppliers and partners. They can create more powerful products. They can go global from day one. It's no longer about, can I develop a market in my hometown? It's about, how do I get to India? How do I get to China? How do I get my products to Brazil, to North America, Canada, the United States? This is what it means to be a successful company today, is to operate increasingly global, to go across borders and to take advantage of all of the unique capabilities that are available over the internet. Panoco is one of many different examples. This is a site where you, as an independent designer of products, maybe you're a fashion designer, for instance, or maybe you are designing other kinds of products and services, can upload your design to Panoco, and they will source the manufacturing around the world. So as a small company, you don't have to own manufacturing facilities around the world. You simply go to Panoco, and you can get your products made around the world via contract manufacturing without having to invest in the physical infrastructure. This is a radically new possibility for small companies, for large companies, and I would submit to you for virtually every institution in society, because governments can tap the creative power of citizens to create better public services. Healthcare, doctors, can tap the creative input of their patients to develop better medical practices. Educators can collaborate with students to enrich, the whole educational process to create a 21st century education system rather than an 18th century model of education for a 21st century world. So the opportunities for all institutions are virtually limitless. Now, I'm quickly running out of time, but I think, we all know that we have a big challenge with demography and the fact that our population of employable people is declining over time. Here in Europe and North America, it's the same picture. You see that slice of red in the middle there. That's people between 15 and 64 years old. That's the core of your employable workforce. Over time, that population is declining without a massive increase in immigration, which means that to be successful, European companies, North American companies, will increasingly have to look for opportunities to harness talent around the world. It's inescapable, because ultimately the largest markets for talent and products in the future will be in the most populous countries, in India, in China, in Brazil, and other places. So we have to think globally. And I think that if I could leave you with one action to consider, it's, as an organization, as an individual, whether you're in government or in business, how can you harness this global talent pool? How can you embrace collaboration, either in your department, throughout your enterprise, but most importantly, how can you get beyond the enterprise? How can you harness the skills, capabilities, and knowledge of this vast talent pool available over the internet? That is the challenge, because I think it will reinvent your company, and it will make you ultimately much more successful. Thank you very much.